sorry. We won't talk about what my weather's like then. Or the
It's
fact that I'm wearing
like,
shorts.
yeah, it's probably like 80 degrees over there, isn't it?
It's like 83, yeah. And sunny.
Yeah.
I've gone outside a couple times today to walk because it's just so pretty. I've been procrastinating about walking outside.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Homeschool Teacher Lounge. Back after a couple weeks off, and we're happy to be back. I am Misty Winkler, and I write and podcast at Simply Convivial about homeschooling and homemaking and doing life cheerfully. And my co-host is Pam Barnhill, or that way.
Hi, yeah, whichever side I'm on. I'm Pam Barnhill, and I have two podcasts. I have the Your Morning Basket podcast, all about gathering with your children and learning together, and then also 10 Minutes to a Better Homeschool, which is quick, actionable, little homeschool tips just to help you have a better homeschool. So, and you can find me at pambarnhill.com.
Well, you have had a busy few weeks of travel. Give us the update.
I have had a busy, it feels like forever since I have seen you or talked to you. And it does feel like I've just been in the car going. Because I actually traveled this past weekend too. So, but yeah, so we did two great homeschool conventions, which were awesome and amazing. If you are thinking, do I want to go to the Great Homeschool Convention this year? Like, do I want to? I'm just worried about what things are going to be like. And, is it going to be exciting? It is. It's exciting. It's exciting and wonderful. They've been fabulous conventions. The crowds have been great. Everybody's just so happy to be there and
Nice.
So excited to be homeschooling. So it's been awesome. So,
Fun.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. And so you haven't been home much, so there's not much homeschooling, but you're taking kids with you. And
Yeah. So I took on the first week, I took John with me. He went with me for Greenville because it's a little bit of a tougher convention, and he did a fabulous job helping us get set up and everything. I never force or require my kids to work in the booth. That's like totally up to them. They're really just along for the ride, and they can do what they want to. Now I do offer a little financial incentive, if you can help it. And he did. And so that was good. And then the last time, which wasn't last week, I had been home for a week, and we have been homeschooling.
Yeah.
But the last week, I took John and Thomas with me. So that's the first time Thomas has ever been allowed to go without dad. And so this is kind of a big year for him to see, like, can I handle it? And, will I do okay with it? He's 12, and he's the baby. So sometimes, yeah. But anyway, he did fabulous. Anybody who was at that convention who saw him will tell you he won over everybody. He did a fabulous job. Colleen's son, Trevor, actually runs our booth, and he said it's a good thing we're not working on commission because Thomas would be getting all of them. And he made himself a little money. And yeah, it was good. So very valuable life skills picked up during the last couple weeks. And then they did have things to do when they were at home. And, you know how it is when you leave and leave them here. There are varying degrees of quality work being done.
The expectations just have to be aligned properly.
Yes, this is correct. Yes, and my expectations were here, and I was perfectly happy with what went on while I was on. So yeah, but we have kind of gotten back into the swing of things since I've been back, and not like we didn't immediately jump back into it. So it's been kind of like a sputtering start, but now we're feeling pretty good, and we have a few weeks before we leave again, and the next time I'll be gone by myself. So okay. I'm setting them up. I'm like, oh, I've got this science experiment kit in the closet. We're going to like finish up this little science book we've been doing. And now you're going to have that to do while I'm gone. So just stuff like that. And they're working on their writing and things. So Anyway, that's us. How about you guys?
Well, last week was our spring break week.
Oh, good.
So we didn't do school last week. And the week before that was definitely the last week of a term where the weather was nice most days. So it really just felt like, can't we just be done and go out? So it's probably, the weather today. It's like, oh yeah, we might as well be doing school.
Right, right.
But yeah, so now we're back, and this is our last term. So we have 6 weeks of school left. So when I made the checklists, I did go through the books and the things that, like, what are we on track with? Where do we need to zero in on so that we do finish by the end of the school year? And what am I giving up?
Yes, yes. I just released a video about this last week. Like, what do you do if you're not finished with your homeschool curriculum? And that was one of the things I talked about is,
Yeah.
what are we going to give up? What's not making it into the 75%?
Yes. So, I think if you compare how we did this year with Latin versus other years, I think we did pretty good. I think we made it through more than half of the program. And so, and we're doing visual Latin too. And I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Something needs to go on the school list because I know that the weather's going to end up being nice. There's going to be a few more opportunities for just going hiking or doing things. And I know after over a decade of homeschooling that the last term is just full of spring fever and tired of doing all the things. So I just looked at the list and thought through, what are the things I really want to keep doing and wrap up? And that's what we're going to do. And we're not going to do any of the other stuff.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
So
Yeah.
we should definitely be able to be done by lunch most days. And I think that will really help the spring restless feeling.
Help the morale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've definitely we're not doing all the lessons in the writing book. I'm flipping through and saying, these are the ones we're going to do, and these are the ones we're not going to do. And so we've started doing that as well. Now, math, they hit every single lesson, but, yeah. So,
but we also aren't trying. We also aren't trying to finish a math book by the end of the year. They just do a lesson and stop and pick up. So.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. And actually, my high schoolers, I don't know, I'll have to see how busy they're going to be. Mm-hmm. My high schoolers will probably have to do math during the summer. I might let them have a month off. I don't know, we'll see. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
So,
well, we are going to start construction on a new house. So that was another thing where it's looking at the next 6 weeks and who knows, but we would like the project, dirt should be moving sometime in the next 6 weeks. And so that's going to mean my mind's going to be elsewhere. So
right.
Things had to be cut. And then, for the summer and when that does start, there will be other opportunities for them to learn different kinds of skills. So we'll go with that.
For sure. Kind of like going to conventions. They're just
That's right.
Learning. So,
That's right. Yeah. So our topic today is homeschooling teens, and how is homeschooling teens different from homeschooling like the 10 and under crowd? And I like that conversation, that contrast, because it kind of skips over the 11 and 12-year-old. We're just maybe that's
just ignore them.
That's a whole nother topic.
I love it. Oh,
so now yours are all over 10 now, right? You've got...
Yes, they're all over 10, but I do have a 12-year-old. So I do have one in that messy middle, and then one who just turned 15, and then one who's 16, almost 17. So I would say the biggest thing I notice is that, like, nobody wants to get up and get started early.
Yeah.
Ever. And they all want to stay up late.
Yes.
So that's been kind of an adjustment. Even the kid who I thought was never going to be somebody who slept in. Like, I mean, he got up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. He was the kid who always, like, if I would get up at 5, he would get up at 4. He would be up at 5:05. If I got up at 4:45, he would be up at 4:50. But he now, wants to sleep in. So it finally happened. If you have one of those early risers, it probably will eventually.
Yes.
So I've never been one who naturally moves quick in the morning. And so it really doesn't bother me much. It's always just a game on the other end of making sure that we get done in time for the afternoon things.
Right. Yeah, because there are often more afternoon things for those older kids than there ever were for the elementary kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and more important things, something that you can't just blow off. Like,
right.
We have to work. We have a job. We have to be there on time. Somebody's depending on us. So yeah.
Yep. So I have an 18-year-old who's graduated and moved out and all on his own, and then a 16-year-old senior. So, and he was at the community college this last year. So he's not really being homeschooled really this year either. And then a 14-year-old, the 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So we still have one in that elementary.
Under 10, yeah.
Under 10, but just barely. So it's a whole new phase of life for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes it depends on, I can think of, well, what's the major difference? And I still, because I do have kids with learning disabilities, I do still sit with my kids and do a lot more than I think your average person who has like a super independent, teenager. And so, it's going to depend on your family and everything as to what that looks like and how that happens. Because, we do like pick a science topic. Well, it doesn't make sense for me to say to my daughter who's, could go and take the science topic and study it on her own. It doesn't make sense for me to say, well, I'm going to do it with these two over here and you just go do it by yourself, because she's the only one. And so we actually do a lot of things together as a family. So for us, in a lot of ways, homeschooling hasn't changed as much as you might think, but I know it's not always like that. I've spoken to friends who has like one child at home and they're, that child is a 9th grade or something, like they're just so independent. They just come and check in with me. And I could totally see that being the case when it's just me and Thomas. But it's not that way yet.
Well, and sometimes, and I will say this also as someone who was a homeschooled teenager, and I found it to be true with my own too, they can look really independent and on top of it. But if you aren't actually looking at their work, they're only doing as much as they want to, which is never as much as they ought to be doing.
Yeah.
So there still needs to be some kind of checking in and oversight. And I do think it helps the learning to actually sink in if they have someone doing it with them or someone to talk to about it, and not just to be totally independent and all on their own with it. So some kind of, whether that's pulling in some friends to do it with, or even just being there as the homeschool mom. You're not teaching. There goes the headphone. You're not teaching, but you're kind of learning alongside, just being there. And I do think that helps.
Yeah. I want to try to tell this story without throwing a kid under the bus. But I have one who's working in a writing book fairly independently. And so I'm looking at the questions and answers today, and the question was, um, and then I'm going to phrase this very poorly, but it's like, where does however usually fit best in a sentence? And the answer that the child wrote was after the comma. And I'm like, you're not wrong, but I don't think that's
However,
what we're going for. Yeah, however. And the child insisted that that was exactly where it goes in the sentence. And I'm like, well, you're not wrong. But I don't think we're learning very much from that answer. So, and then there was a little bit of petulance, like, am I going to have to change all of these answers? And I started like looking down the page and glancing down the page and just doing a little check-in. I'm like, no, the rest of them are fine. It's just this one.
Yes.
So we finally got it straight.
Well, we get that actually even in the 10 and under crowd, as soon as they can write things like word sentence answers to math word problems where there should be a number answer, they'll talk back to the math question. Joe should do his own math. Joe shouldn't be making pies. Just eat the whole pie.
It's like, yeah, you could have figured out the answer in all the time it took you to write that. I love it.
Yep. Yeah, I think sometimes, especially when you have all younger students, it's easy to think that when they're teenagers, then it's going to be easier. It's going to be less work. And it's different. It's a different kind of relationship because you're not, there's a lot more, individualize it, a lot more teaching, like being there, helping them get the next thing when they're little, where you really have to be involved in the whole process. And a lot more, just reading aloud and that kind of thing. And then as they get older, they do get a checklist and they do have work, but they still do need oversight and some kind of relationship element. And independent doesn't mean they don't need mom anymore.
Yeah. I feel like when they were under 10, when I had 3 under 10, I felt more like, Lucy in the Chocolate Factory, where I was just like, stuffing, like just trying to like get the thing. Like there were so many moving parts and I was trying to keep up with all the moving parts. I was the worker, right? Mm-hmm. And now I feel more like the manager.
Yeah.
So, even with the fact that I'm still there with them, in case they need me or something like that, it still feels more like management instead of working in the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I know that a lot of people get a little nervous looking at high school and homeschooling high school. And one, it's not that bad. You can do it. And if because you don't have to be the teacher of all the subjects. You're just the one finding the right resources and making sure that the work happens. Right. And then, I don't do grades. In any of their stuff. They have to correct every math problem still, just like they did all throughout from the very beginning. So we still use that same math pattern, I guess. When we have stuck with Math UC the whole way through. And I did. So for my oldest, I never had to make a transcript. And for
because you did running start.
Yeah, yep. He did the dual enrollment at the community college, so all he had to
Right.
do was pass the test to get in, and then he took classes, and then he had a community college transcript. So his high school transcript was not required when he applied for his 4-year degree.
Right.
And my second son applied to a private Christian college, and I did need to make a transcript. And it took me about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Without ever giving a grade to anything, without ever keeping track. You know, I had the plans, I have the things that we did that were just
Right.
part of my homeschool planning from the previous years. I pulled them up. I said, well, this is what we did. Used a template, and it took 20 minutes, and it was good to go.
Yeah, Sarah McKenzie, when we speak, and we a lot of times get questions about high school, and I can't remember, I think she got this from Heather Woody, but she just talks about the fact that like people are so worried about like writing out course descriptions and things like that. And she's like, really, they just want like English 1, English 2, English 3, like don't write out the course descriptions, like just put in the name of the thing and make it standard. Your transcript looks like everybody else's, and that's what they're after.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. They aren't actually like putting your kid through a litmus test to see if it's just bureaucracy. It's just a hoop to jump through.
Right.
If you make it as vanilla as possible, they just want the box checked.
Yep. That's exactly it. Yeah. So.
Oh.
Yeah, and I will say that on the days that the attitudes are halfway decent or better, I really enjoy homeschooling teens.
Yes.
I mean, there are bad days, just like there were bad days when they were little. There are days that I just kind of want to throw up my hands and cry, or I'm like, yeah, But for the most part, they're fun to talk to. They're fun to be around. We have a good time and enjoy it. So,
Yeah.
can't ask for more than that.
Yep. You trade in some of the cute factor for actually having banter and reading good books and talking about them together. That, you say, oh, I would just choose to read this on my own, but now I get to read it with my teenager and have someone to talk about it with who's an interesting person. And you just see them become their own person too, where, maybe there's a lot more imitation going on when they're little. You think you have a lot of influence and control there, and then they're teens and you're like, well, there you are. This is you. And I like you, but you're not me, and that's okay.
Most things I like. Yeah.
So it's fun to see them just grow into their own people.
Yep. Very much so.
All right. Well, here's to a strong homeschool week.
Yep. A big finish.
Yep.
Maybe. We always fizzle at the end of the year.
It's just gonna happen.
I'm always like, we're gonna finish strong, and we never do. We always fizzle.
That's why the fall has to be really strong.
That's right. That's right. Very much so.
All right. We'll talk to you next week, Pam.
Bye.